Good afternoon, and thank you so much for joining us. Hugh, over to you.
Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar, The Future of GovCon, AI Cost Transparency and Agile Partnerships. This is a collaborative webinar presented by Leadership Connect, sponsored by our amazing partners at Voltron. My name's Hugh Murphy. I'm a Senior Vice President here at Leadership Connect and look forward to moderating this great panel today. AI isn't just a buzzword, it's fundamentally changing how agencies define mission success. Meanwhile, across increasing demands on cost transparency and compliance are reshaping competitive dynamics. And agility, once a nice to have, is now a must have for staying ahead. So whether you're a large prime or an emerging innovator, your ability to adapt, evolve, and lead in this space will define your relevance in the years to come. So today we're going to bringing together some of the sharpest minds in government contracting, leaders who are at the front lines of this transformation. And together we'll explore how AI is reshaping procurement priorities, and what cost transparencies really means for compliance and pricing strategies, how agility is becoming a key differentiator, and most important, we'll hear some real-world insights from those who've navigated these shifts successfully. But before we jump in, I just have a few housekeeping notes to share with all of you. We are certified NASBA CPE credit sponsor. And so if CPE credits are something you're interested in obtaining today, please listen to the following. For the webinar, you can receive up to 1 CPE in the information technology field of study. In order to receive credit, you must meet the attendance and participation requirements. So for the webinar today, we'll have 3 polling questions. We just need you to answer each of those 3 questions to qualify. And as a reminder, Leadership Connect is registered with the National Association of State Boards of Accountancy as a sponsor of continuing professional education on the National Registry of CEP sponsors. So the state boards of accountancy have final authority on the acceptance of individual courses for CPE credit. Any complaints regarding registered sponsors may be submitted to the National Registry of CPE sponsors through its website, and let's get started from there. So we really encourage everyone to ask questions. There's a Q&A icon at the bottom of your screen. Would love to have you share your insights throughout the day, and looking forward to getting started. So it's my pleasure to introduce our speakers. We have 3 great panelists to introduce you to. First off is Quentin McCoy, Head of Contracting Activity at the Office of Acquisition Management Services at HHS. Next, we have George Forbes, from the Director of Digital Transformation Division at the U.S. Air Force, and also recently named to the Constellation Researchers AI 150, which is an elite list of the top global executives leading AI transformation. So great to have George here as well. And then last but certainly not least, Nora Basher, Senior Director of Growth at Voltron. So again, welcome everyone. Would love to just start off if each of you could share a bit more about the work you do and the missions that inspire you, or what you're most passionate about in your current roles. I guess maybe Quentin, you want to kick us off?
Sure. First, thank you for the invite, Leadership Connect, and what an honor it is to be here to share my experiences and to share also what and to discuss what's going on rather in federal government in terms of the emerging tech and AI. I am the head of contracting activity at the Office of Acquisition Management Services, as you said, within HHS. In my role, I am overseeing the procurements of all of the Office of Secretary and Assistant Secretary offices and special offices within HHS. procuring a range of goods and services, totaling over and about 1 to 1.5 billion annually. And we are not seeing a tick down, actually. We are right now. I've been there for about 8 months now. Prior to that, I was at the Chief Digital Artificial Intelligence Office, supporting that new stand-up office at the Department of Defense, doing procurements associated with the mission to push AI capabilities throughout the DoD from the battlefield to the boardroom. And then prior to that, I helped to set up the cyber procurement office at the United States Combatant Command for Cyber. And in that role, we had a very interesting time with limited authorities, doing OTs, and we have this space. We had the space of the unknown in terms of emerging tech and cyber specifically, and had a lot of fun there. But right now, I am full circle back where I started my federal career 25 years ago at the HHS NIH, National Institutes of Health, as a GS2. And things have changed. HHS, I love the mission of HHS. The public health mission that HHS has is one like no other. It reaches across from coast to coast. The HHS has a huge technology and modernization initiative right now. They're leveraging AI to enhance the mission of protecting and advancing the health and well-being of Americans. And across the divisions, across all pieces of HHS, they're exploring the implementation of AI. And that's from improving public health surveillance to advancing medical research, streamlining operations, and strengthening emergency responses. Excuse me. So these efforts, of course, this mission excites me. And again, I'm really excited to talk today about where AI is going, emerging technology is going, and how the government is looking for strong partnerships so that we can get after developing capabilities to support the government at large mission. Thanks, Hugh.
Thanks, Quentin. George?
Hi, my name is George Forbes. I work in the Air Force, and in particular in the Operations Division, which is essentially the heart of the Air Force, the flying operations. My role is to what I call exploit digital and retail analytics. So as an artificial intelligence, machine learning expert, my job and my passion is to take information and help people make decisions faster, and quicker, and more efficiently. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for being here, George. And Nora?
Hey, Hugh, good to see you again. It's an honor to serve on this panel with my fellow panelists. My name is Nora Bashur. I lead growth and strategic partnerships here at Voltron, where we help transform the way contractors compete and win. Previous to Voltron, I was on the government contractor side of the house for many years, mostly in business development. My background is in healthcare, and I was really drawn to kind of the mission of federal, the mission of healthcare, advancing healthcare security and innovation at scale. Now at Voltron, what I get to do is help countless companies align their growth with national priorities to make real public impact. I think the promise of government is to serve, protect, and uplift. And at Voltron, I get to be at both behind the scenes and also at the forefront, supporting how our industry supports government to support our nation better and faster. Happy to be here.
Great. Thanks so much, Nora. So yeah, I thought we could just start off just really talking about AI in federal procurement. I think, there's obviously, as we said in the beginning, a lot of buzz, to say the least, around AI. And I think want to really dig in a little bit on, what's real, what is, some hype around it, and really talk about maybe even some examples. I guess maybe Quentin, I was going to ask you, have you seen, maybe you kind of touched on a couple of high level things. Is there anything you can share with us, some really successful examples of AI tools that, improving the procurement process and or, program outcomes so
Yeah.
far at HHS or even your time at DoD?
Yep, absolutely. So I will say when I first got to HHS, coming from the CDAO, uh, I was like, where are the AI tools? What's going on here? Where you guys at? You're in the cave. And I later found out that there are pockets of capabilities across, but in terms of procurement tools and capabilities, so part of the mission where I was prior to this job, we had a small budget. We were working with AI tech companies to try and prototype different AI tools, and we utilize and some may have heard of TradeWinds. This is a platform that we use. You can Google and see it. It's a platform that was developed so that you can get after AI tools very quickly, uh, post competition. And there are a ton of tools on there. But when I first came to CDAO, I was blown away by one tool that was called ActBot. And this was kind of like my first introduction to an AI tool actually being, ingested into the acquisition process. What it did was it helped to develop, I mean, in seconds, your statement of work, which is like the hardest part for our customers many times in the government is, helping them to find out what they need, what they want, and articulate it in a way that industry can propose back what what they're looking for and give a solution for it. So uh, we actually implemented that workflow, that process, or tool into how we do acquisitions. We would start out with the customer and sit down and do these sessions with them, and through different iterations and as they're talking about what they need, I witnessed, within 5 minutes you have a draft, right? And then you go on and tweak it, and the conversation that is normally days took 15 minutes to develop, and we're off to the races, So, and that's just one example. There are many others that are out there. There's a ton that are available for market research. I've seen a lot of those tools, and so I'm really excited because you also see, with the way the new administration has come in and just kind of push us more to removing barriers and making sure that we're using and capitalizing on AI capabilities and using it responsibly, but just going forth and getting it so that we can be more effective and efficient in what we do.
Great, thanks, Quentin. George or Nora, any other examples of some successful examples where AI has been implemented, even at the program level, if not the procurement level?
I can speak to, I think from the contractor side of the house, we're seeing the biggest gains coming from AI augmenting humans, as Quentin had spoken to. So giving people faster access to insights and better ways to act on these insights. On the contractor side, I've seen AI kind of unlock hidden strengths that like BD capture and proposal teams didn't know that they had, in terms of like surfacing insights from all the vast amounts of data and information they've been gathering. And they didn't have time to kind of analyze it and then act upon that. So using AI in terms of like a final layer, not a foundational layer, but a final layer in terms of its people first, then process, and then technology. The company can get its operations and processes in place, a pursuit approach in place, and then layer AI into that to make it better. Then they can elevate their workforce to perform at kind of the top of their skill set. So using AI to do things like reinforce discipline, processes, analysis, as opposed to distracting from it. The goal that we kind of talk about is not necessarily AI for AI's sake, but using it for detecting signals faster, understanding what's going on in this vast amount of data that we're collecting. So we can kind of derive value from it, because we need to deliver that value to the government. Sometimes it can take us days, hours, weeks to just surface the insights from all that data. So, and that's just the start line, because we've got to get to that start line before we can, figure out what to do next. So use AI to get you to that start line faster. Let our best minds in our companies, in our agencies, do their best thinking.
Thanks, Nora.
And Hugh, I was just going to add too,
Yeah.
because there's also a couple of challenges I see with AI that I saw, right? One of the big ones outside of everyone knows you need good data, but the government's workflow, huge challenge, right? The way we do things, a lot of times you just can't ingest, this AI tool to flow the same way we do. But what I do see some hope is that they're again breaking barriers. There's this rising, desire and push right now from the workforce to rethink how our workflow is. For every one new policy, we tear down 10, right? It's just like we have that ability now, and so I do think you're going to see more more things being operational faster and trying out more things and worrying about the workflow in the back end so that we can fix that as we get the tools in that we need to go forward, which is a good sign and win-win for everyone.
Absolutely. George, I know when we were prepping for today, you had mentioned there's certainly some challenges, maybe some missteps. Talked a little bit about, AI generated proposals or other things like that. Any other kind of things to be aware of, or maybe to try any challenges to try to address or avoid?
Yeah, sure. So I'm an AI practitioner. That's what I do for a living. And so I'm gonna let you use AI. I dropped something here in the chat. Everyone's online, so go to your favorite GPT, Variety, put that prompt in there, and what you're gonna see is around 14 or 15 varieties of subcategories of AI. What I've heard oftentimes, including on this panel and nearly in every media product you get, is the value of Gen AI. The reason I put that in there is you're going to see there's around 14 or 15 varieties of AI. Gen AI being the most sexy and latest version, agentic being right in front of that. But that means all that other stuff has been there for many years. So many of you are already using it. So here's the hype. It's not new. In fact, we've been working on it for around 30 years. So don't forget that piece of it. And it's not simply about workflow management. It's about processing information faster to get the decisions faster. And it's also taking what I call your workforce and shifting it from manual tasks to cognitive ones. I don't need 16 analysts looking at images like it's 1942 in some dark room when I can have a computer do that and have those 16 analysts sift through the results. So I think that there's more to AI than simply Gen AI. There's more to AI than simply taking the workload off. It's been there for a long time, and the tools that are coming out today are going to revolutionize many things, but we're already revolutionizing things. So I think that's an important piece.
And I guess to follow up on that, George, when you mentioned, using machines to run through some of these queries and provide more efficiency, is it important to have that human kind of interaction or verification on those processes, or how are we at this stage with that to ensure that? I mean, I know Quentin sort of mentioned you have to have good data going in order to get a good outcome going out, but anything else from that perspective to make sure the outcomes are what you expect?
Yeah, I think that's a super point, great point to make. Yeah, you need to have good data going out. As a practitioner, that's less important to me, really, as much as it is. More important to me is the fluency and literacy of your staff, right? So, increasing that fluency and literacy in the data domain space is probably more important than getting good data, because guys like me will help massage your data and get you close enough. But being able to interpret and know which tools to use in what circumstance is probably more important. And so I think that's probably the place where you can go to find greater returns than simply on, preventing yourself from moving forward because your data isn't perfect. And also it says the chat's disabled. What I put in the chat is, or what are the subcategories of AI? You can put that in there yourself.
That's great. Thanks, George. I guess maybe we could take, as I mentioned, there'll be a few polling questions. Wanted to pose the first question to our audience, if that's okay. How prepared is your organization to adopt or support AI-driven solutions in federal contracting? So I'd love to get everyone's take there while we're waiting for some of those results. Do any of the three of you have any other thoughts as we talk about AI adoption and how we can implement it better in procurement, whether it's challenges or opportunities, as we're waiting to see what the results are here. Any final comments on this subtopic for today?
I definitely see an opportunity in terms of like change management, because you don't want to just layer AI on top. So if you can take a pause and figure, again, people, process, technology, what is it that we need to do as an organization, regardless of what side of the house you're on, in terms of change management, process improvement, performance management, and then use the AI or whatever tech stack that AI is going to be in to make that better, faster, stronger, more agile, more flexible. It's a real opportunity, I think, for kind of everybody. It's a lot to manage and operationalize, but what an awesome opportunity.
Thanks, Nora. And I can see here our results. It looks like, not currently, well, I guess just starting to learn AI, not currently focused on it right now. So it seems that there's a small number of the audience here that are really actively incorporating it, from what we can see here from the poll. So thanks everyone who participated in that. So I guess wanted to maybe shift gears a little bit now to talk a little bit more about the cost transparency and compliance. There's a growing demand in federal contracting for clear cost structures. From your perspectives, what does good cost transparency look like? Why is it so critical now? I don't know, maybe I see, Nora, you're nodding. Maybe we'll start off with you.
Yeah, and again, I'll speak from kind of the industry side, government contractor side, and what I'm seeing at Voltron is we are so used to preparing proposals, then the cost narrative. But if we broaden our thinking and kind of back up a little bit and try and figure out how can we support the federal agencies better with our approach to cost, how can we price for life cycle value? So, typically we're writing our proposals or approach, then we're developing a cost narrative, explaining labor rates, escalation, and so forth. But can we provide evidence that we've priced with kind of foresight in terms of like life cycle cost, sustainability, total ownership impact? How do we use that life cycle value pricing to align to mission impact? Because now we've got to think longer term and more flexibility. So for a contractor, we've got to operationalize that financial justification and approach more upstream. Like think about it in terms of baking into how we're architecting solutions, even structuring teaming agreements, allocating risk. Sometimes we're seeing contractors approach those not siloed. They're approaching it at the same time, but it's still a little bit too kind of pulled apart. So how are we going to integrate that a little bit more, a little bit deeper upstream? We're seeing signals that agencies, and I think kind of George and Quentin can speak to this better, but as an industry, we're seeing signals that agencies want best value over time, mission impact. So can we demonstrate in our proposals that we've engineered kind of cost clarity as part of our value proposition, so pricing becomes a logic that's part of the overall narrative instead of just like a supportive type of justification that we're submitting.
Thanks, Norm. Quentin, I see you nodding. Do you want to add to that?
Yeah, I was just gonna say that's good to hear from the from what Nora said too, and resonates with uh, some of what the government is desiring now. We are very focused on cost efficiencies. And the more data we get, the better we can support the costs associated. So, gone are the days where we give you a budget and you back out of that budget and propose us, what you think you can do for the job. But there's more look and priority on, how much is it, how long is this vendor taking to deliver? How long is this one taking, based off of the pricing? And then what, no kidding, are we getting from the bottom line number? So the better that picture is painted, and the more transparency, because even doing, I can tell you frankly, I see this at the department, doing more focus on cost efficiency. You're, as a procurement official, I'm learning more about the back end costs. Like, I'm like, oh wow, okay, I didn't know that was built into there. Of course, it's a different, health is a different animal, right? But the devil is in the details, right? And if you don't know, then you won't know and be able to defend, best value for the public. So that's kind of my perspective and where I see we're going. I don't think it's going away. I think we are actually going to start focusing more and have the tools and ability to be able uh, to look and view more cost, what we're getting, how you're partnering, and the benefit that is being provided to the government, versus vice, company X. And so be prepared for that, and make sure that you are being transparent so that you can have the advantage going in the door.
Thanks, Quentin. George, anything to add here?
I have plenty to add, except that my two colleagues are probably more apt, more able to give you that perspective.
Yeah.
I have some expertise in other areas that I'll reserve my time for, Mr.
Okay.
Speaker.
Yeah. To me, it definitely comes across. It's interesting, like where, with, you mentioned, Quentin, I guess the new administration, is looking to, try to break down some barriers and, speed innovation and incorporating AI into different programs. At the same time, there's a focus on, cost efficiency and such. Is that a tough balance to maintain? That could be anyone too, for chiming in.
I'll just say yes. There's a balancing act too, right? So we're still learning that. And thank you to industry partners who are, sending emails probably in fear, but saying, giving us feedback, because it really is going to take all of government and industry together to make sure we get this right. Because this is, like I said, something that's not going away. We need to start looking at more of how we are spending taxpayer dollars, and being more efficient. And I think we're going to just be doing that more, and it will be a balance. And we're going to need industry partners' support on that too, as well.
Excellent. I think we're gonna go to the audience a second time here. So for our second question, which is, what is the biggest challenge your organization faces in today's government contracting environment? We'll give them a few seconds here to respond, but I think, this discussion around transparency and kind of speeding up the process is something I think we can segue into here, and talking a little bit more about agility and speeding up innovation in just a second here. But I'm curious what the audience sees as some of their challenges today in the current environment.
All of the above.
I know now if I was back in school, I would be looking for that answer, but
Yeah, exactly.
we're making everyone think a little bit here. I guess while we're kind of waiting, everyone responding, let's talk about a little bit about the, oh, here we go. Here's the results. So pretty spread out, I think. It looks like you're responding to shifting procurement processes and timelines, navigating compliance and cross-transparency requirements, and certainly keeping pace is with evolving technology, certainly no easy task for sure. Anyone on the panel have any reactions to that or anything they'd like to speak further on any of these results or topics?
I'm not surprised to see the shifting procurement processes and timelines. I'm hearing that from kind of across the market. It is really difficult when a company is operationalized around that, familiar rhythm and cadence of the traditional RFP. And now we've got these kind of, they're not new OTAs and so forth, but I call them kind of flexible or rapid procurement approaches. They do reduce friction, they create faster on-ramps, but it's very difficult for a company to operationalize both types of approaches. One, you're relying on that, familiar, again, that familiar rhythm of the RFP that we know you can shape, you can participate in market research, and you may get a pre-draft of an RFP. You've got an industry day, but other procurement methodologies may require companies to operationalize more of a kind of on-demand or self-directed business development approach and partnership approach with the feds. And again, operationalizing both of those at the same time, that's especially with companies that have very, very well-established processes, that's a lot to ask them. And it kind of even speaks to what we're seeing in innovation and tech, like especially in AI. AI is leapfrogging ahead of itself at a pace kind of faster than anyone predicted. And I'll leave the details of that kind of, experts like George. But the real differentiating for companies, government contractors, isn't the technology alone or their approach alone. They have to pair that with operational agility. So speed to value becomes a new advantage. And they need to be able to respond to different types of procurement models, accelerated award cycles, and so forth.
Yeah, go ahead, George. I know we spoke quite a bit about some of these topics.
That's very astute, Nora. From the user perspective, the operational perspective, not only I couldn't amplify that further. I think because it's so true. The industry right now, the AI industry, as you mentioned, moves very rapidly. We figured somewhere around 2.6 years per technology, right? So we're essentially going very, very quickly, and it becomes obsolete very quickly. Our procurement process goes very slowly, so there's that first mismatch and incompatibility. So you can't expect something that's going to be obsolete in 2 years to take a 2-year contracting cycle, right? That just it's not going to work. So what we've done to arrest some of that erosion of capability is having the capacity to move to as a service. So as a service has great benefits for us. First of all, we don't have to go through a lengthy procurement process. We can buy on a subscription basis and then build things within our environment. Software as a service, we can build things within environment. Data as a service, we can build things in the environment. So we more or less give you GFE infrastructure that you then build within that makes it go faster. So as a result, we've talked about, we have a mandate that if you come into our domain space and build out an application for us or build a product for us, it's a 180-day window from begin to delivery. because we don't have the time to waste for you to go through a long period of run up. But that means we got to be ready. So that means our GFE that we give you, our infrastructure, our ATO, our software developers kit, our objects, our domain space, our pipeline for CI/CD has to be ready, and we've accepted that. So we're accepting part of the risk, and we're shifting the balance slightly differently and changing the model. So to your point of agility, we also require agile development. We also require human-centered design. So we're not showing up with a 3-ring binder with a certified needs assessment, a requirements document. Those are so, blockbuster video-esque, right? Why? Who does that anymore? So let's tell me what you need and have product over process. So these very fixed, firm processes that we've had in the past are not going to serve customers today. So those are some of the compelling pieces. And then the final thing I'd like to say is that, everybody out there provides a service. But beyond that, that service that you provide is going to be incredibly fluid, as I've talked at length about now. So really what's very important for the government client is the hospitality part of it, which is the experience, the frictionless environment that you work within, the exceeding expectations and the delightful products that you bring to the table. Those are going to be the things that the government remembers, not necessarily the compliance with or the long drawn out 200-page proposal. In fact, that's the turnoff. So I mentioned those things because that's where we're headed. And that's where we've seen great adoption and great speed and great success in the last 2 years.
Thanks, George. Quentin, anything you want to add from your side?
Sure, yeah. So, man, the perspective is really real here. So, no, I really enjoyed hearing with Nora and George their perspective, and I can kind of give you from the procurement office perspective, right? So, we are responding to the Georges of the federal government. No dig, but he's right. It's like our process is too long and for us to get after technology really quickly and to meet the mission. And so you'll see there's a bunch of executive orders that have come out. One that I was discussing earlier with the SPE over at HHS, which is driving us to go commercial. Like if you do non-commercial, you need to it has to go up like to get approvals. And what I mean, that's a signal to me that we need to operational operationally, we need to move faster. Like they are giving us, and that's just one key, right? There are a bunch of other executive orders breaking down barriers, when you're buying things and it. So we're responding to we are also being agile in the way we think and how we engage with industry. Sorry, Nora, in advance, if you see a proposal for 2 weeks with a 2-week turn time, this is because the need is right there. The government itself is moving in a way where we want to move fast to get things done. And there actually is a culture within the acquisition profession that is cheering that on. Like, yes, why are we doing this? Why do we have to give so much lead time, and why do we have to do this? And then in turn, we're also questioning and making sure that we have procurements that you're able to respond to. And so that goes to, early discussions and making sure that you're tracking all the things that are coming down the pipeline, publicly providing information, right? And being transparent in what we provide for the next year and what's coming up, what our capability needs are. And the other regulatory things I think you'll see, even with the overhaul of the FAR, right? So I think there's a lot of push to allow and make this a more streamlined process. To George's point, to get what we need, even if it's as a service, like we work with the commercial buy and then we adopt it and we mess with it internally and then we go forward from there. So those are probably the more what you'll see. going forward is we need to go commercial, and we'll worry about our business and workflows and lead times and all these other things, and we'll dive it into that and make us all successful.
That's great. And I guess when it comes to that, if you think about sort of the government industry kind of collaboration, partnerships in this AI era, as we're talking about implementing these emerging technologies and modernizing services, it really does require a lot of collaboration between government and industry. I know you've all just sort of touched on that a minute ago in different ways. How are we? What does that look like? What does a true partnership look like beyond just the meeting the requirements? Making sure that you put out those requirements publicly and efficiently. Anyone have any thoughts on when do you collaborate with government and industry early on, or just talk about that partnership between the two?
Can I mention that?
Please.
I started talking about there that difference between service and hospitality. And here's bonus content for those of you who decided to stay longer than the first 15 minutes. There's a book out there by the name of Unreasonable Hospitality. The guy who wrote it is named Will Guidara. Why am I telling you that? It's really nice in this technical conversation to have a piece of fresh information that's not technical. It deals with the food industry in the high-end business. And that high-end restaurateur business. But why am I telling you that? Because in it, Will talks about, as I mentioned a second ago, delightful experience, a memorable experience. I think that's the key to partnership with the government. Is partly your product is gonna be provided, but the experience that you have with the government is gonna be the enduring, durable piece that's gonna keep this going. Because as we go to OTAs and CSOs, it's going to be much more easy for a government entity to just say, choose that, do that, more of those, buy me 10 more of those. It's going to be much easier to do that. So the differentiators are going to be that memorable experience. And that's why I gave you that bonus content that you weren't expecting from the food industry. But I think it's important as we look at other industries, how they do service, how they do things, because it's by staying within our own confines, we often get confirmation bias from our friends. We look at the social proof around us, and they're all doing the same thing. But I think that we're now in a position where we got to do something different, and there's a lot of appetite for that, and then there's a lot of compelling executive orders to prompt us to do those kinds of things. So I'm encouraging you to try something a little bit different, maybe outside of your game, maybe outside of your normal repertoire of things you listen to or read. But I think that that's a really, really important piece. And the people who've been successful with us, we take along with us, because why? We don't have to relearn. We know what success looks like. They know what success looks like, and we can move super fast.
Thanks, George. Yeah, that's great to hear about that memorable experience from the government side. Because I imagine, do you think that should, I would think, lead to maybe more innovative offerings and companies coming into maybe an offering to help government solve some of their challenges, if there is that more kind of hospitable work partnership. Quentin, were you gonna say? I thought I saw you nodding.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Yeah, no, I actually was going to mention, I think the key here with collaboration is the sharing of information. And I am just blown away. I was talking to a colleague here at HHS, and they actually have public information out under the Assistant Secretary for Technology and Policy. If you go to healthit.gov, they have AI use case inventory. So there's like a whole inventory. If companies want to go out and just submit a white paper, to them. I mean, there are a ton of things on there. The inventory really is like a centralized resource that documents the current and planned, I'll say it again, AI use cases across HHS, the operating and staff division. So all of HHS, they collect these use cases, they catalog them, and they use this to show industry like how we things that we think that we can use AI for. And I would encourage everyone. NIH has another platform out where they're trying to get feedback on uses for industry products and tools for AI. But this is like the first step. Just like go to the customer's website, look through, dig through, and find out what they need, what their mission is, right? Cold call, set up a meeting or send information, right? Send information. There are people that still, I look at emails. Because now they have this, they give you a cell phone. I'm virtual everywhere. So it's like virtually everywhere. I'm in two places and two offices. So email is the best way to get me. And I look at emails and try to be responsive to industry because I get it. I've been engaging with industry and collaborating with them for over 20 years now. So I understand, but I really want to just press on the industry partners here today to seek out the information. It's on there. A lot of it is public. There's an executive order about promoting the use of trustworthy artificial intelligence in the federal government that requires a lot of these agencies to put use cases out there. I just encourage you to look online. If it's not on there, ask their chief data officer. What are the use cases you guys have developed in accordance with this EO? or ask them if they like to have a conversation about some of the tools that you're developing. But it is about communication, open information, and just building together, right? There are over 270 use cases on that site I just gave you, over 270, another plug. And so there's a lot on there. I encourage you to go, if you're a company on here, to go and see what you can do for the nation's public health mission.
Thanks, Whit. Nora, anything you want to add from a contractor's perspective? Maybe are you seeing some insights or more collaboration as it relates to working with government agencies?
Yeah, I've had this saying for a long time, and I think it's even more true now, especially given what Quentin and George have just said in terms of, I always say, people are probably sick of hearing me say this, but requirements don't live in a vacuum, right? They're always tied to something larger. So the best contractors take the time to understand that the ecosystem, that requirement or set of requirements live in. We've got to, as industry, help shape the how, not just focus on like what we're going to deliver, because we need to partner with the government to develop better solutions, more valuable solutions. And agencies always know when we've done that work, coming prepared with a solution as opposed to asking them, what keeps them up at night. I always advise folks to kind of pick their head up and look around in terms of like, okay, you've got this requirement. It ladders up to something, right? There's these layers of the ecosystem, and we have to be aware of all of them and then address all of them in our long-term solutioning and pricing. So there's a mission layer, like why does this matter now? Could be performance pressures, strategic objectives, EOs, but understanding what are they trying to achieve, larger scale, and why now? There's an operational layer, so we have to go beyond the program or the product to understand certain structural factors, maybe staffing constraints, workforce systems, maybe even funding constraints. There's a stakeholder layer in terms of there's numerous stakeholders that are invested in the outcome of whatever is being purchased, and that goes up to the hill. Each of these stakeholders' perspectives is going to shape scope, success of what you're proposing. And I even tell folks, look one layer broader than that to national priorities, because everything kind of ladders up and ladders back down. And the better we understand this larger ecosystem, the better we can solution partnering with government and building that trust, because we've got to give them those faster pathways to impact, because the reason why our government is doing what they're doing is because of what's going on at the world level. And when you kind of step back and look at it from that perspective, it's really, I always find it kind of mind blowing. It's so much broader, but we often just kind of focus on that requirement. So just remember to kind of ladder your viewpoint back up and think about it from that broader perspective.
That's great. Thanks, Nora. I think we'll post our final question to the audience now. Just which area do you think will have the most impact on the future of GovCon? And I wanted just to take a minute to remind everyone, as we're wrapping up here in a little bit, if anyone in the audience has questions, feel free to share them in the QA button on Zoom. We just had one quick question, maybe we can answer. Quentin, you mentioned a website a minute ago with with all the different things you're looking for. Could you repeat that for the
Sure. Yep.
audience?
It's healthit.gov. It's the Assistant Secretary for Technology and Policies. They're the leader of all of the kind of organizing the AI outside of the Office of the CIO. And so they're all there. You could also Google if you can't find it. Yeah. Use cases, HHS, and it AI use cases, and it should populate too as
Excellent.
well. It's open source. ASTP is the agency acronym. And just maybe do ASTP AI use case if you want to find it direct.
Excellent. Thanks so much. So you can see kind of the leader here is emerging technologies, AI, advanced analytics, etc. Certainly makes sense there. So I guess as we begin to wrap up here, we still have some time, but I wanted to give an opportunity to each of you to really just share any other kind of key takeaways or things we should be looking for, both from the agency and industry perspective as we prepare, for what's to come. And I know with the speed of which everything is evolving, the future might be tomorrow, but like any key takeaways you'd love to share with the audience before we finish up today.
Sure, I'd like to mention something that things are moving super fast, really fast, and more, I think, than we've ever expected. I mentioned as a service, I think we're going to see a lot more of that. We certainly are leaning into that almost exclusively. We're also seeing consolidation. So what we're seeing is if you're bringing us tools that have to get layered on top of layer on top of layer that require authority to operate and a lot of bureaucracy to get it approved, it's unlikely to be successful. So finding ways to put your product into existing things is a really beneficial thing, or your service.
Thanks so much, George. Quentin?
I would say buckle up. I told my staff the other day in the all hands, just buckle up, right? We know what we deliver. Industry knows what capabilities they have to deliver, and just be ready to be agile. And I think with AI, just remember, especially for HHS, we have a ton of public data, right? And so security is a big thing, data security, ethical use, right? and I know HHS is focused on that, making sure that we are using data properly, even albeit with AI tools. And then, we only know what we know. So again, if you have capability, press the send button, and work to get it in the hands of the person who you identify as needing it. And sometimes that's not always the procurement office, right? So, we are getting a lot of we get our requests from customers, frankly, right? And so it's like finding those customers, going to their website, seeing what, doing some intel to figure out who is doing what in the agency. How can my tools support this agency? And that you just got to be persistent, be in it for the long haul. We're seeing changes with the way we buy things with the FAR overhaul. That's going to change a lot. I encourage contractors and vendors to pay attention to what's happening because they are looking at, I believe, Part 36 down with the protest and seeing how they can, what needs to change there. Some of it's legislative, so there may be more things involved, but stay connected to that to figure out, make sure that you're making the best business decisions and how you navigate is aligned with, how the government is moving at this time. So be encouraged.
Buckle up.
All right.
I like that. And Nora gives the final word.
My gosh, there is so much going on. It's mind-boggling. And as a government contractor, how can you future-proof yourself? Because we can't predict the future, but we can begin to become operationally ready for it. So how are government contractors going to embed adaptability into their day-to-day operations? Future proofing for a government contractor, again, is probably not going to be about predicting the future, but how do we develop workflows that can absorb this level magnitude of, I want to say, disruption, change, newness? We've got to literally think about structuring for the volatility. So it's not necessarily what we build, it's paired with how we work, because as George and Quentin have spoken to, we can't just bolt innovation onto like a brittle process that can't flex. So how do we flex without losing direction, without losing momentum? So if we think about it from a business perspective, operational discipline, flexibility becomes a strategic advantage. And if companies, government contractors can future-proof themselves by designing a workflow that can absorb that change and partner and meet kind of the partnership requirements with federal agencies, those will be the ones that do well in our kind of ever-changing, unprecedented environment that we've got going on today.
Great. Thanks so much, Nora. And this brings us to the end, a quick hour, and still lots more we could talk about, but it's been a great discussion. I really want to thank our outstanding panel today for their insights. George, Quentin, Nora, thank you so much. And again, thank you to our amazing sponsor, Voltron, for this event. I thank you all for joining, and I hope you came away with some valuable insights as well. And I hope you all have a wonderful afternoon.
It's been a pleasure. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.